Hello everyone. A personal friend and clinical psychologist has asked me to read a letter that he has written to you guys. He is warning of the top 10 present dangers of Dogman field investigation. I suppose you could include this across the cryptid world. Personally, I think he's just afraid of them, but I did get something out of this letter. Hope you guys do too.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
Look at you.
As a psychologist, I would like to emphasize the importance of being aware of the risks associated with repeat exposure to dangerous situations or activities such as these Dogman expeditions and field investigations. Here's some top 10 risks that I think your viewers should be aware of. Number 1, physical injury from the creature or the area itself. Repeat exposure to dangerous situations increases the risk of physical injury, which can range from minor cuts and bruises to serious injuries such as broken bones or cuts from this monster, even death. You have to be so careful, even if you were just hiking in these old growth forests like my friend D goes into. You can't ever be certain of what's going to take place. Now, I know he has his faith, which is fantastic. It's good for your mental and physical well-being to have faith, as a matter of fact. But that being said, you cannot control the situation of the area. You just can't. The second is trauma. Exposure to dangerous situations can cause psychological trauma, which can lead to anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, and other mental health issues. I've seen this just being a non-objective third party of the cryptid field, time and time again. People are becoming obsessed, but we'll get into that. Fear and anxiety. Repeated exposure to dangerous situations can lead to increased fear and anxiety, which can affect a person's ability to function in their daily life. As you know, fear and anxiety can be a controlling factor in your life if you allow it to be. Fear and anxiety are not good things. Not as good as people might think they are. People say, well, fear keeps us from doing X, Y, and Z. That may be so, but when fear and anxiety are the product of going into dangerous situations increasingly often, then that can be the precipice or the nuclei of every bad experience you will have after that. You will hearken back to this PTSD that's been given to you by these creatures, or just being in the situation of seeing them or having some close interaction. That will always be the nuclei of the ongoing fears and anxieties to come in the future, such as at your workplace or things of that nature. You'll always hearken back to that trauma, and fear and anxiety is a direct result from that. Reduced quality of life. Repeated exposure to dangerous situations can lead to reduced quality of life, as the individual may become increasingly restricted in their activities and social interactions. Addiction. Some individuals may turn to drugs or alcohol to cope with the anxiety and stress of repeated exposure to dangerous situations. Dee and I have talked at length about the overexposure that he's had to some of these creatures, and how early on that did bring addictions such as alcohol. And you have to face the facts that we are only human beings. We are not meant to be exposed multiple times to such traumatic events. Social isolation. Due to the fear and anxiety associated with repeated exposure to dangerous situations, individuals may become socially isolated, leading to loneliness and depression. The loneliness and depression that people feel is why this little microcosm of the cryptid field has such a close-knit camaraderie and family-like atmosphere, because not a lot of people can relate to you guys having had these experiences with these creatures in the woods. It's very distinct. And when you find someone who shares in your trauma, there's an automatic kinship. But there's also social isolation. Like I said, it's a microcosm. It's a smaller version of what's happening in the world. So even though you have your cryptid community, you still have to work among people who don't even know what cryptids are. And that could lead and does lead to social isolation, which isn't a good thing. Financial loss. Physical injury or trauma resulting from repeated exposure to dangerous situations can lead to financial loss, as the individual may need to take time off work or require expensive medical treatment. Relationship problems. Repeated exposure to dangerous situations can negatively impact relationships, as the individual may become increasingly withdrawn or irritable. Impaired decision making. Fear and anxiety associated with repeated exposure to dangerous situations can impair a person's ability to make rational decisions. Increase risk-taking behavior. In some cases, not all, but in some cases, repeated exposure to dangerous situations can lead to an increase in risk-taking behavior, as the individual may become desensitized to danger, as your friend D has become. I really worry about my friend and his laissez-faire attitude towards dangerous situations. This can lead to further physical and psychological harm. People, it is important to seek professional help if you or someone you know is experiencing any of these risks due to repeated exposure to dangerous situations such as this cryptid field investigation stuff. Not saying that it's bad. I do enjoy the cryptid field, and I do believe in them. I'm a believer. I've never had an experience, but I am indeed a believer. That being said, a psychologist can work with individuals to develop coping strategies and address any underlying mental health issues.